I think that this is purposeful conflation and it's misdirection. And I'm just so tired of people pretending to be economically illiterate and not understanding what happened with the Reedy Creek situation. So you had Disney that was acting as though it was not part of Florida government. It was its own government. It had special tax status. It was exempt from a ton of different oversight, things that actual conservatives would call cronyism, things that actual conservatives would say isn't in keeping with a level playing field for all businesses. See, it's Democrats that like special privileges for corporations, not conservatives. Conservatives don't like that. Well, I mean, maybe Mike Pence does. Maybe Mike Pence does like it. And look, I don't dislike Mike Pence. He's been on the program before. But I think either he doesn't know enough about this issue and the situation with state and local economics, or he does, and he's just trying to hope that you don't. And that's what this is about. So just so you understand, this all situates on the Reedy Creek Improvement Act. This was something that was done in 1967. And they wanted to create, for Disney specifically, they wanted to make it its own special, super special, precious little municipality, right? And so they had, I think, almost 30,000 acres at the time that they had. They had a self-rule preferred special tax status. And in going back and looking at, and this is at the Reedy Creek Improvement Act, the website. In 1967, the state legislature, working with Disney, created a special taxing district, et cetera, et cetera. Now, here's the thing. DeSantis didn't do this by himself. It had to have been done by the state legislature at the time, as it was in 67. And it had to be undone by the state legislature, which it was done under DeSantis. So for Pence to present it this way, what he's trying to say is that he's hoping that you don't understand that the state legislature, in fact, acted and that it wasn't just DeSantis. And he's trying to make it out like, oh, well, this is DeSantis punishing Disney, and doing this. I mean, if you're going to be a limited government conservative, then be a limited government conservative. But being a limited government conservative doesn't mean that you take a position in favor of special accommodations for corporations if you think that it hurts a potential challenger to your 2024 ambition. Because that's not being a limited government conservative. That's being a swamp creature who's more in line with progressive behavior than anything that we've seen from limited government constitutionalists. And quite frankly, I think that it's a little bit below the belt for someone who likes to wear, his faith as publicly as he does. This is why I tell people, the bigger the cross on cable news, the more deceitful they are in real life. I say that from personal experience with these people. So many of these political people. All right, so and it wasn't retaliatory, although you can go ahead and think it's retaliatory. Do you honestly think that Disney deserves to have like all of these special accommodations, particularly after everything that they've done? And you have to keep in mind too, they had their own board that were revolting against them. Nelson Pelt led a whole takeover. So I mean, this is all stuff to consider. The people who are presenting this to you any other way are lying to you. This wasn't done with the pen. It was done with the state legislature. The state legislature did this, and only the legislature could do it because the legislature did it back in 1967. I mean, he wanted to see Disney's tax status revoked, and a law was drafted to that effect, and that's what ended up happening. I get so aggravated sometimes, even with our side. We deal with enough fake news with the left. We don't need to deal with it from people on the right. So they have the whole preferred status was dissolved, so they don't have their self-governing status. They have a state-controlled term-limited board, and it allows the state to impose taxes on Disney for projects outside of the district's boundaries. They have to pay their $700 million in debt. They don't get to shove that onto Florida taxpayers. They have to do it. And it provides no control of the whole thing. They wanted to make sure it was as transparent as possible. So they wanted to make sure that they didn't get preferential treatment. and that they didn't try to threaten to leverage the situation to raise local taxes either. And they have an avenue was created so that Disney is compelled to contribute to local infrastructure. And they also are prevented from gaining more land through eminent domain. And so do you realize that they had the ability to build nuclear facilities? Technically under the Reedy Creek Agreement? Do you realize that, right? I mean, it's wild, but they did. So this idea, I'm trying to understand what part of treating them like any other corporation finds offense with Mike Pence. I love these people who say things like, well, I just don't really think that's conservatism. Like they're the bouncers of conservatism. Seriously? I hear Nepo babies on The View saying this stuff. Nepo babies who are pro-choice, acting like they're the bouncers for conservatism. Sit down. It's goofy. And this is why Mike Pence will never get elected. Stuff like this. Not because he's trying to doing a stupid, sloppy hit on DeSantis or the state legislature who drafted the law, but it's because I feel like if you think that that's an anti-conservative move, then I have to question whether or not you know what conservatism is.